Today we continue building our first Lego house out of the ship. And last time we got all the way up to putting in the fireplace with our light brick here. But now we need to do the roof. We need to give our settlers shelter from the stars. So, how are we going to do this? Well, this roof, I want it to have a little bit of character. I don't want it to be just a simple A-frame pitch roof. There's lots of roof techniques out there, but I want to do something fairly simple because it would have been quite simple for the settlers. And keeping things simple, as I said last time, will definitely help you just progress as you're building these things. Small and simple. Let's start. I think these pieces here from the Going Merry, nice curved pieces there. I think that they can fit on rather neatly. Does that fit? Yeah, it actually does fit. Look at that, it does fit. So that'll fit there, and there's another one just here. If we're lucky, does that curve? It really does. It overhangs a bit, but that's just going to add character. Look at that. So now we've got a little bit of a curve on there, and it's brought it up to this point. You'll also notice, as a viewer pointed out last time, that the ram's head suddenly popped up. Apologies, that was a mistake in editing. Hopefully you appreciate it, that the ram's head on the front comes from the Going Merry directly. So now that we've got this bit on, we can start trying to lay out a roof pattern in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and see how many studs along, because I need to build a sort of bottom frame for the roof. All I'm doing is using these 2x6s. I have various ones of those earthy tones that sort of would have come from the ship. The ship is missing a lot of plates, so there's not a lot of options. So you can see here I've mapped it out there, and I've left a cutout for the chimney. Maybe a little bit big, but it's all right for that chimney cutout. That'll be fine. So now I've done this, I want to try and make it a solid base. So I'm going to layer it so it just joins that up, because I want to be able to lift this roof on and off. One of the things to make sure you don't do is build it on the base plate, because you can see I'm pressing it down into the base plate. Oh, it's all sticking together. I'm not too sure what the actual construction of the roof is going to look like at the moment, but it's going to need a frame regardless. So I'm just getting a frame done to begin with. Then we can figure out how to coat it. Okay, so you can see that we've got a sort of rough outline done. Now before I try to strengthen it any further, I'm going to check and make sure it definitely fits our house. So yeah, that does fit. You can see there's a couple of pieces here stopping us just the elevation of the roof. So that fits. That's what we want. We want a little bit of an overhang here because we may want to put something here. So this actually fits at the moment. The next thing to do is to just put our final layer on this, because this has to be really strong because it's going to have to hold some things on there, potentially. We don't want that to be weak at all. Okay, so now we have a reasonably solid little structure. I'm going to want this roof, I think, to pitch up the way. Or do I want it to slide that way? There are different ways to do it. I think I'm going to have it go up the way, ultimately. When you look at these roofs, we could go with thatch, we could go with timber, we could go with stone. I think the most obvious one the settlers would have gone for was wood. And something we might be able to use for that is log profile pieces. I wonder if we can use these in some way to build a roof. Okay, so I've banded a few of them together here. That might work quite well. Something like this effect. While I think about this, why don't we check in and see what our settlers are up to? As the last plank slid into place, the carpenter paused. A cool drop touched his nose, then another, and then the heavens opened. The sky wept, not in sorrow, but in joy for what they'd built. For the first time, the rain didn't touch them. It sang above them, soft and steady on the new roof. Inside, laughter rose with the fire's hiss, and the mason whispered, "Now it truly feels like home." What I've decided to do is just put a mixel joint on there, these ball joints that you get. They give you a great flexible bunch of movement, and we used these, if you remember, in our tree episode. If you twist it onto its side, you actually get a great amount of movement. You can attach something on the side. I've just put some snot brackets on there, made sure they're nice and secure, and then put it on its side. That's allowing me to create this sort of A-frame that I may want to do. Now, it may even allow me to do something a little bit more higgledy-piggledy. Let's see. Okay, so now we got these 1x5s on there. And maybe a way to join that with another mixel joint. So satisfying, these things. Listen to this. Love it. We may have a bit of a problem up here when it comes to our roof, but I'm willing to give it a go. We are just trying to see what we think might look interesting and might look good. I don't think it would be a perfectly straight roof because I just don't see our settlers being able to pull that off. While they're skilled, they do have limited resources at the moment, and that's what we want to try and capture in this build. I'm not sure how we're going to do it yet. Okay, so now we have these two sort of A-frames on here. This is a reasonably strong A-frame, to be honest with you, especially if we tie it together in some way. Now, the roof that I was talking about, this one here, I like this technique. I like it sort of shows bands, different colors, just earth tones in between this log profile. I think that might look quite nice. What do you think? So how can we get this to attach? I think I'm going to have to use some Technic pins under for this one. Let's put a Technic piece on the inside there. It would be easy if I wanted to mount it like this, because I just use Snot Technique. But I want to mount it like this onto this roof. Let me put two Technic pins in there. The Technic pins are nice and strong. They're really good for building parts when you want to add structural integrity to something. Oh, so what I'll do is put a Technic pin in. I'll put one or two. I'll put one in there. Why not? If I repeat that on this side, so that's what I'm thinking. Something like that, because that will allow that pin to slot into there. Now, this roof wouldn't be perfect, so I want to try and add some imperfections. I'm going to do that by adding in some different colors of the log profile pieces. Things like this, just giving it a little bit of difference there. We'll just give it a little bit more character. Some bigger, some smaller. Let's see. So that's going to be roughly something like that. Now, it would be easy to look at this and say, oh, let's put the 1x1 same color in there, but I'm going to put a little hook piece. No idea why. Something can go in there. So you can see where I'm kind of going with this, hopefully. Now what I'm going to do, I think we need to dress around this roof in some way. So how are we going to do that? So we're going to bring a piece up here, then run it all the way across. So that's going to get ran from there. I'm just going to take these edge pieces here. I'm going to put them there. I don't know why yet. I just want to put them there. Why not? And roofs are often a quite big structure, if you notice. Like, I mean, this is really taking up a lot of parts, and to get the interesting techniques on there, you do have to use a lot of parts typically to get a nice roof. I'm just putting on some tiles on top of that, just to try and finish that section off there. I think it looks reasonable that they would do something like this. I think I'll put something just a bit like this. Just because it looks a bit interesting. When you look at these roofs, a lot of the times they came down and then they sort of sloped out the way. So I'm thinking that we add something a bit like this. And I've just taken a plate, put some tiles on there, and there's something to do with this ball joint. But how do we attach a ball joint there? Something like that. That should work there. We'll have to bridge it, of course. That might work there. Let's see. Let's see how it goes. Oh, decisions. So I'm just going to try and mirror this, and then I'm going to do something very similar to the back, and then we'll see where we're at. Let's see. Why don't we check on what our settlers are up to?
By morning, the rains had passed, and the world smelled alive again. The scent of wet earth drifted through the open doorway, rich, warm, and full of promise. They spoke of wells and gardens and pens for animals, life beyond this little house. The house had sheltered them, now it would nurture them. Yet, as the protector gazed towards the forest, a gentle glow shimmered beneath the apple tree, warm, breathing, alive. It wasn't firelight, but something old, something kind. The bay itself seemed to smile.
So you can see now we've managed to put down these top pieces here, these tiles, these interesting parts that just look, something like those with those overrun edges on there. I've just used those along the top and then put some flat pieces down, and I've been able to layer over an angled piece here, an angled plate, in order to bring it in so it gives it an interesting angle if you look at it. And that just helps bring out some more character in the build. Then at the back here, I've done exactly the same as we did on the front with the log profile pieces, except I've left some snot underneath there and just put some tiles along the top so I can put some detail, bring it around the chimney. I've had to extend the chimney a little bit, and when extending the chimney, notice what I've done is I've just put some 2x2 round pieces in there just to break up that masonry. I think it gives it a bit of a quirky effect, bits where the mortar's maybe fallen out of that chimney. Oh, and I reckon our little clips here and here, they could hold our original Luffy trees from the Going Merry ship, but that will help keep it recognizable and give it that little bit of character. Let's put them on there. And while digging for some pieces, I find, for those of you who watched the previous 2 parts of the house building mock here, our hinge plate. Look at that. Oh, I knew it would come up somewhere in our little box of magic pieces here. I knew there was another one. We can finally therefore finish this balustrade. Look at that. There we go. That's starting to look a little bit quirky and interesting. So that now leaves just our A-frame part of this to be filled in. And that's going to be interesting to see how we're going to fill that in. Do we even need to fill it in? I'm not too sure. Is it starting to look like a little house? What do you think? I think it looks like it's at least giving some shelter now to our settlers. And here's the best part. We've kept it modular, so, ready? The roof can simply lift off. Next time, we'll be looking at furnishing this little house, finishing off the pieces around it, just to add some details and integrating it into our city. Alongside, perhaps, the blacksmith's cottage. So what do you think? Do you think we did an all right job? Or did you prefer it as the Going Merry? Either way, it's now a home. Thank you so much for coming along and building with us today. I've been Josh from Bricks and Kin. Until next week, play well.